Okay, I'm going to read an excerpt from Art Noble's Forbidden, The Alchemy of Erotic Love. And this excerpt is called Orgasmic Bioluminescence. This happens when one or both parties glow by actually giving off photons like fireflies, sometimes in different colors. And as an aside, on a personal note, I have dreamt about this. And yeah, it's extraordinarily beautiful. Anyway, so carrying on. When this happened to my beloved as we approached orgasm, and I could clearly see her face and the furniture in the darkened room, my thought process was as follows. Holy crap! Flashback. Wrong? No, I never dropped acid. Rods and cones in my eyes have expanded? What? Then came the transcendent experience I described in chapter 1, and I was at a loss. I had never heard of such a thing happening before. This glowing may not be followed by a transcendent experience. It just happened that way for me at that time. It took years of research, first in validation from others around the world that they too had had this experience. Then I moved into the biological sciences to figure out what the heck was going on. I should note that this glow can be achieved by a shamanic breathing discipline without sexual congress. I learned in the ancient sacred shamanic that it is called dragon's fire, breath. Dragon's fire or breath. Dr. Clifford Alford teaches this discipline. You can find out more about him in the further resources sections at the end of this book. I first learned of his discipline from a woman who billed herself as a shamanic sex worker. Her name was China Pai. Okay. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay. She told me she would give a 2-hour performance for $500, glowing brightly at the end. I lost track of her. Later, there was an ASECT meeting. It's AASECT, and I don't know what that means, where a psychotherapist gave a paper on shamanism as part of sexual therapy. By the time I contacted her, she had lost her license. Dr. Alford does not have the best of reputations in various communities, probably erotophobic communities. I probably won't either because I talk about sex. I really don't care if he can demonstrate and teach this discipline. Think of hyperventilation. When we engage in rapid deep breathing, our fingers and toes go numb. I imagine this exercise is something like that. We build up O2 and reduce CO2 in our bodies. When I was skin diving, my fingers and toes were always going numb when I hyperventilated. But I never glowed, so obviously there's more to it than just the breathing. It also has to do with mental discipline and clearing the mind. When I shared this bioluminescence experience with some, I was told I was hallucinating. It wasn't suggested to me that I might have been hallucinating. I was told. I love how closed minds work. This kind of sex-induced bioluminescence was first mentioned in the literature in 1948 in a novel when a writer described a greenish glow from his partner as she was having an orgasm. There are fantasy novels today that have certain characters glowing. Dr. Alford tells me he glows reddish and his student glows bluish. When I dreamt about this, I actually saw a blue glow coming from both people. Anyway, he then explains that the color of the glow may be a function of one's recent diet. One woman in Kentucky, a Wiccan, shared that when this happened to her, her boyfriend thought she was putting a curse on him and forbade her from doing it again. Another woman shared that when she was pregnant and singing her favorite song in a performance of the Messiah, it happened to her. After the performance, her friends asked her why they shined the spotlight on her, and she had no idea what they were talking about. She was carrying a bundle of joy within her. But consider that when making love, you are focused on giving love through your body to your partner and open to receiving love from them. And there's not much else on your mind. It's a joyous experience, or it should be. We can see how singing, a task that requires specialized breathing, can play into this effect. We can also see how the joy of singing this particular piece, as well as the joy of being physically bonded with our beloved, can produce this effect. So here we have a phenomenon that can be produced out of pure joy and the breathing associated with it, or simply by breathing alone, essentially mimicking the joy that we feel. Of course, this is all speculation, but I like speculating this way. The important thing is to recognize it as a possibility. It would be nice to light up the world with this glow. Another woman in Arkansas advised that when she wanted to glow, she would call a particular boyfriend who would oblige her. Maybe love has nothing to do with it, or we love without knowing it. It could also be that as orgasm approaches, when we are into each other, our breathing mimics the shamanic breathing exercise. It appears to be as much a function of joy as it is breathing. Are we joyful in the joining of our bodies? This is where the rubber meets the road. All of the people I contacted about this kind of experience apparently had as much knowledge about shamanic practices as I do. Zip. For all of us, it just happened. Remember the origin of the word spiritual, to breathe. But let's assume it was in fact a hallucination. It makes no difference because the viewer believes he or she saw it. In that light, whether the bioluminescence is real or illusionary, it is an alternate theory to the origin of halos. Further, some have reported their lover as translucent during this kind of experience. I only have anecdotal evidence of this phenomenon from others. Some stories also involve translucence and even invisibility. Could H.G. Wells' Invisible Man be based on his experience, which he thought no one would believe? One fellow told me after a few sips of wine with his girlfriend, he began meditation. When his right side became translucent, she freaked out and broke his concentration. I don't know about these last two. I've only witnessed bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is the opposite of photosynthesis, the process that takes light to activate the chlorophyll in leaves to turn them green. We also use energy to run our bodies, light energy. We take on the photons, which is light energy, from the sun to manufacture vitamin D in our bodies. Bioluminescence is simply giving off photons rather than taking on photons. We see it normally in fireflies and certain marine organisms. Now consider, as you approach the orgasmic plateau with a love-focused mind, the autonomic nervous system takes over and naturally sets up the breathing rhythm to produce these results, mimicking the shamanistic breathing exercise. Further, PET scans of humans having an orgasm show that glucose uptake to the brain is shut off, where MRIs show an increase in blood flow. There are a lot of things happening in the human body about which we have no knowledge. We can only speculate, as I just did. Let's just say humans are fantastic creatures. We can guess that this glow is a function of the adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP, as it is in fireflies, and our cellular oxygenation from this breathing. The referenced article also mentions nitrous oxide. Do our bodies produce this when we're joyful? This kind of experience may occur with optimal blended orgasm and may be sometimes a precursor to a transcendent sexual experience. It is not common, yet it does occur. The lanternfish, anglerfish, and some squid have lights they use for attracting food. Other than possible mate attraction in fireflies and perhaps in marine bioluminescence, no other mammal besides human beings is known to exhibit this phenomenon as part of their orgasmic or mating experience. Insects, bacteria, mollusks, and earthworms do exhibit this, and slugs exhibit it on mating. The slug is a curious creature, being of both genders. During mating, the two slide down a slime rope and the male organ protrudes from behind the head and grows as it intertwines with the partner's male organ. As they both reach completion, the top portion of the two sex organs spread out and they begin to glow. Their wands of light glow. There's a YouTube video on this on BBC called Who knew slugs could be so romantic? Okay. All of these creatures have photophores, organs, or photocytes, cells, and I don't believe that we do. Dinoflagellates have a luciferin light emitter with a chemical structure C33H38 O6 N4 and Na2. Other light-emitting marine organisms have a similar luciferin structure with an S or nothing on the end. All contain an enzyme called a luciferase. That's so interesting. To provide the luminescence. The chemical structure of ATP is similar. C10H16 N5O13P3, only in terms of the elements and gross structure. I have no idea how ATP can be changed into a luciferin, or if it even is. In love, this glowing orgasm is a mystical and somewhat frightening experience, well, at least the first time anyway. What all these sexology studies tell us is that these effects are but small pieces of the total experience our Creator designed for us. Someday, science will pull it all together, maybe.